and welcome to the director's commentary on Kevin's life. We're picking up our protagonist here at his summer job. Right now he's kicking out the titular, the drag. It's this kind of chain mesh looking thing designed to kind of scrape the earth. It's kind of like a big rake, this whole setup. The machine and the drag trailing behind it. It's basically like a very large rake that you drive. The purpose of dragging is to level the field, primarily. That's why there's this process of you start at the outside, bringing in all the loose material towards the center, and then from the center you spread it all back out, trying to make the field as level as possible and distribute the material evenly across the surface, as well as a certain cosmetic value. What I love about these baseball fields is that they really are some kind of American Zen garden. It's this like abstracted version of nature that we have our soul, our monastic hero here curates it quietly against really chaos. I mean, there are the people and nature are kind of constantly unordering this perfectly ordered place that he resides in. Thing about all this is how utterly pointless it is. He drags out the field, people play on it. He drags out the field, people play on it. He drags out the field, people play on it. So it's just endless. There is no definitive. Nothing is ever. There's no net accomplishment, no net gain. He's always just returning this thing to. He's maintaining it, returning it to a state. And this is really a pretty important metaphor for Kevin's life. He's always been someone who thought about big picture kind of problems of knowing that mathematically it's likely that the Earth and everything on it will inevitably be destroyed. It's just a matter of time. Of course, it's a long time. It's a huge amount of time. But that's the kind of Kevin is constantly thinking about that kind of thing. He's been kind of contemplating this what he considers kind of a problem, that no real lasting record can ever be made. So he's through this job, kind of coming to enjoy just the sense of purpose, even though it's arbitrary and ultimately pointless. He's learned to just kind of live life and enjoy something, just the doing, and not necessarily worrying about the permanence of a given activity. Looks like Kevin got a little distracted there, a little off course. He's actually pretty remarkable at this. As you can see, he's barely turning the wheel. He kind of already knows the exact angle that he's going to need. In addition to dragging out the fields, Kevin is also the one who chalks the fields, and it should be noted that he can walk in a near perfect circle for the purpose of putting down the chalking out the batters boxes and the warm-up circles it's amazing to see, years of trying to walk in the straightest lines possible and walk in a perfect circle, and you can pretty much master it. I love this little move that he does. The other maintenance personnel are told to use rakes to get around the home plate, get those kind of exact edges, but years of experience has led Kevin to develop his own special kind of way of handling the bases that are embedded in the field. So he does all these kind of fancy outside loops in order to get these crisp, amazing edges. And again, we're seeing his precision here. He knows that exactly 5 times in, the fourth one around, he does the loop around the home plate, which we saw the last time. The 5th time, he knows that he'll basically be setting the middle of the tire, the front tire, down the middle of the foul lines here. It's a shame we don't get to see him chalk the foul lines. I mean, he can put down, they're practically laser beams. It's amazing. These baseball diamonds, I mean, they're really like some kind of theater of the absurd. It's a huge amount of money and time and resources and very specialized equipment, from this tractor that our protagonist is riding on to this, even the infield dirt itself is specially formulated for exact properties. And all of it goes to curating these very nice, very ordered, specific patches of dirt, which are then, of course, annihilated in the course of a standard softball game, only to have them do it again. So I like the idea of putting our protagonist Kevin up against some kind of an unstoppable force. He's really out here trying to fight the forces of entropy. Chose to set this scene in rural Colorado, and to have this kind of sense of desolation and isolation as a reference, as an homage to Western films, which I love. Shot this very early in the morning. I think this is around 6 or 7. That's the sunrise over there on the horizon. I think sunrises are more beautiful than a sunset, simply because you usually don't want to be awake for a sunrise, so it kind of defies your expectation to find this beautiful thing when you're kind of set to be grumpy and unhappy. So Kevin's beginning the second phase of this process, going through the middle and then circling out. It's pretty much arbitrary, just from years of experience, that he knows when to turn into the middle and begin circling it out. It's just kind of something he picked up from years of experience. He does this big 4-leaf clover with these outside turns kind of pattern, just so he can get kind of as close as possible to the pitching rubber here. Obviously without having to stop or get off the tractor. You wouldn't believe how hot it gets out there. It's 100 degrees in the grass and in the shade. So out in the infield, it's like the sunlight just bounces back up and comes right back at you. So it can be 105, 110. Before you even start to move, you're already drenched in sweat. And that was part of the appeal of this job, of making Kevin go through this experience, was the hardship of it, the suffering. He feels like he needs to suffer in order to have earned his just desserts. I think it's just kind of a great modern day Sisyphus. I mean, he's driving around in circles again and again, and in the same way that the rock would always roll back down the mountain, the baseball field will be ruined, and he will prepare it again, endlessly. And it's a lot of this is about finding joy in that. Basically, it's a lot like the character of Dunbar from Catch-22. The character seeks out boring, difficult, painful experiences because he finds that they make life appear to move longer. And he, in the interest of lengthening his own life, then begins to seek out the most boring and potentially lengthening scenarios. And that's kind of the same path that we're pushing Kevin down. As he matures, he's come to understand that most of life is doing things that you don't want to do, and waiting in line, and all kinds of sort of banal, boring situations. So this job was instrumental in teaching him to learn to love those things. If you don't learn to love them, you're going to be a very unhappy person. Part of why we chose this job for Kevin is that oftentimes, structure can be the birthplace of creativity. So basically, by forcing him to do the same activity with the same goal thousands of times, what you end up with is kind of like 1,000 variations on the same theme, that he's kind of constantly perfecting this process within the bounds of kind of vaguely what it needs to be. This field needs to be level and look nice. Those are kind of like the only rules. And then how you achieve that is left up to you. So we see that Kevin has a very kind of fastidious nature and is a bit of a perfectionist, because he's kind of constantly trying to make this a more and more exact process. Actually, along those lines, Kevin developed his own drag pattern using these kind of outside circles that he's so fond of. This is a kind of turning away, the opposite of what he's doing now. And he goes between the three bases and the home plate to create this kind of large overlapping Celtic knot pattern that then has its kind of center at the center of the field around the pitching rubber. And he just developed this out of boredom and his own, I suppose, artistic needs. And with that, the ritual is complete. He has finished his task. He'll go on to do this at the other 4 fields in the complex. Not to mention the hundreds, if not thousands of times that he'll continue to do this throughout the summer. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the director's commentary.